a faint whimper, so fragile I almost walked past it. But then it came again, broken, strangled. Not a bird, not a deer. Too weak, too desperate. It sounded like a cry forced through a parched throat, begging someone not to leave it behind. I froze on the leaf-strewn trail cutting through the Blue Ridge woods, my breath fractured into small clouds of white. The sky hung thick and gray, autumn light bleeding faintly through the bare branches. Normally, I would only hear the scrape of wind or the brittle snap of twigs beneath my boots. But today, in the silence, there was this sound, thin, yet it struck straight into my chest like a hand gripping my heart. I had lived inside silence too long. 4 years since the day my son, Ethan, was taken in a truck accident. I had walked away from the machine shop, walked away from town, and buried myself in an old cabin on the edge of Asheville, North Carolina. There I grew accustomed to stillness, to the tick of clocks, to mornings wrapped in fog. I thought nothing could ever shatter that emptiness. Yet now, with one broken cry, everything inside me cracked. The sound came again, closer, urgent. I left the path, pushing through ankle-deep maple leaves. Branches scraped across my sleeve, leaving raw lines. My heart hammered. I didn't know what I was about to find. A wounded animal, a dying creature. But I knew one thing. If I turned away, the memory would haunt me until my last breath. And then I saw it. Between two fallen oaks, a small shadow trembled. Eyes wide, brown as wet earth, catching what little light filtered through. A Doberman pup, no more than 3 or 4 months old. Black coat matted with mud, clinging to a body starved thin. Its hind legs were trapped between the logs, its frame shaking in helpless jolts. When it spotted me, its jaws parted trying to growl. But what came out was only a strangled sob, so weak it sounded like pleading. Fear and pain tangled together. I stood there, airlocked in my chest. Because in those eyes, beyond the panic, lived something deeper, despair. As if it had cried through the long night and no one had come. As if it had already prepared to surrender. Memory surged. I heard my father's voice again, from when I was a boy in Arkansas. "Mike, the woods are cruel enough. Don't let your indifference make them crueler." Back then, I didn't understand. But here, faced with those pleading eyes, I understood all too well. I lowered my pack, dropped to my knees, and reached a hand forward. My voice trembled, but I forced it to be soft. "Easy, kid. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm gonna get you out." It shivered, teeth clenched, hot breath washed out, sharp with damp earth and blood. I held still, letting it smell me, allowing it to choose. It could bite. It didn't. It only whimpered, eyes closing halfway, as if to say, "Do it. I've got nothing left to lose." I pulled the old pocket knife from my pack. Steel caught a shard of light through the canopy. It had been my father's. Now it was the only thing that could split the line between life and death. I knew there were only 2 paths. Turn my back and let it go, or step forward and save it. I looked into those weary brown eyes, quaking, exhausted but still carrying a faint spark, and I knew the truth. The choice had been made the moment that first cry rose out of the forest. I dropped to my knees only a few steps from the pup, wide brown eyes locked on every move I made, a mix of fear and raw pain. It forced out a hoarse rasp, clinging to what little strength it had left to threaten me. But I saw the truth. It no longer had the power to fight. Its hind legs were wedged so tightly between the logs that I could see the joints trembling, its hips straining as if they might snap. Each time it struggled, a strangled cry tore out, sounding like someone ripping apart its tiny chest from the inside. I forced myself not to rush. I'd seen animals caught in traps back when I worked field duty as a veteran. Rabbits, deer, even bear cubs, they all carried the same look. Eyes balanced on the knife's edge between life and death. And now, I saw that same look in the little Doberman before me. I drew in a breath, kept my voice low, willing each word to soak into the air. Easy, kid. I'm no enemy. I'm here to help. It tilted its head, ears drooping, the growl breaking into labored breaths. Its eyes stayed fixed on me, measuring every motion, as if to say, "One wrong move and I won't forgive you." I set my pack to the side, letting the clink of metal sound softly, showing I had nothing to hide. My hands opened wide, palms facing forward. I let silence do the rest. In the forest, distance itself is the language of trust. I held still. No step closer, no step back. Memory clenched my chest. I was 12 when my father led me through the woods in Arkansas. We found a sparrow caught in a snare wire. He said, "Mike, nature is cruel enough. Don't let your indifference make it crueler." That day we cut the wire, but the bird lived for only minutes. I was crushed. My father only laid a hand on my shoulder and said, "What matters isn't the outcome. What matters is that you did your part." Now another small life lay trapped before me, but this time I swore I'd do whatever it took to see it live. Slowly, I pulled the old pocket knife free. Steel flashed under the dim light slipping through the canopy. The pup jolted instantly, teeth clattering. I stopped, lowered the blade to the ground, letting it see I wasn't about to strike. "Listen," I whispered, throat raw. "I know you're scared, but if we don't do this, you'll die here. And I can't let that happen." Its eyes closed for a heartbeat, then opened again, glistening in the light. Something had shifted. No longer sheer panic. A flicker of something fragile. Trust. I edged half a step forward, lifting my left hand toward its muzzle. It hissed a faint sound, then yielded. Hot breath washed my skin, mixed with earth and blood. It didn't bite. It only trembled. I took that as the signal. I slid the knife into the narrow gap, steel grinding against wood, shrieking through the quiet. The sound rang out through the trees, echoing with my pounding heart. "Hang on, kid," I muttered, voice shaking but steady. "Just a little more. You'll be free." Wood cracked. The pup screamed, body convulsing. I stopped instantly, leaned close, whispering reassurance. "It's all right. I'm here." It panted hard, eyes shut tight, then opened again to meet mine. Not fierce anymore, but desperate, pleading. That look stopped my breath. A small soul pouring its last hope into me. I pressed on. Sweat slid down my spine, though the cold wind whipped my face. Chips of wood fell like rain. I clenched my jaw, driving every ounce of strength into the blade. A sharp crack split the air. The logs shuddered. I shoved my arm beneath its chest, pulled hard. That fragile body slid free, falling into my hands. It was so light it startled me, yet stiff as a drawn bowstring. The hind legs dangled, trembling. I lowered it onto the bed of dry leaves, my heart thundering. It lay there, gasping, eyes still locked on me, no longer growling, just spent. I sank across from it, hands open, palms up where it could see. And in that moment, something unseen passed between us, a thread, delicate but real. My voice came out ragged, almost breaking. "Welcome back to the world, kid. You're alive." I sank down onto the ground, breath ragged after wrenching the pup free from the timber. It lay curled on the bed of dry leaves, hind legs stretched stiff, trembling in waves. Its small chest heaved as if it had run a long race with no finish line. For a moment I thought it might stop breathing altogether. Its tiny head tipped to the side, eyes half closed, lips quivering. I pressed my calloused hand against its back and felt it, the faint but steady pulse of a weak heart still beating. A thread of warmth pierced through my chest. It hadn't given up, and neither could I. "Easy now, kid," I whispered, my voice breaking in the cold fog. "You're still here. I'm not leaving you behind." I pulled a handkerchief from my pack, poured a little water from the steel flask, and dampened the cloth. Gently, I wiped the mud from its face. The grime smeared away, revealing those brown eyes, cracked open just enough to meet mine. Gone was the feral glare. What remained was exhaustion and a silent question. "Why are you helping me?" I had no answer except the only truth I knew. I couldn't walk away. I tried massaging the hind legs where blood had been trapped too long. The skin was icy, joints stiff as stone. The pup whimpered, a sound so frail it squeezed my chest like a vice. I remembered the soldiers I'd seen frostbitten during my service. The only way to save them was to force blood to move again, no matter the pain. "Hang in there, kid," I muttered, working each toe, pressing into each knot of muscle. "This pain is what keeps you alive." Its head dropped, a guttural cry escaping, raw like a child weeping. I bit hard on my lip and kept going. Then suddenly, its toes twitched. Just a flicker, but enough. My throat tightened, eyes burning. "That's it," I whispered with a cracked smile. "You've still got a chance. Don't let go." I worked a few minutes longer before easing back, letting it rest. Its chest rose more evenly now, its breathing less frantic. It no longer stared at me with pure despair, but with something closer to doubt, as if asking, "Can I trust you?" I glanced at the sky. The sun had climbed, beams slicing through the branches, but the mountain wind was sharpening cold. I knew one truth. If I left it here, the night would kill it. My cabin was 3 miles away. Not far, but for a broken pup, it might as well have been another world. I tugged out my heavy coat, spread it on the ground, and laid the pup gently on it, wrapping it snugly. It struggled faintly, let out a rasp. I stopped, met its eyes, and spoke low. "Trust me. Otherwise, we both lose." It closed its eyes, stopped resisting. I tied the coat with a rope, fashioned a sling, and cinched it across my shoulder. As I lifted, its frail body quivered, claws brushing my chest. But instead of clawing, it only pressed in closer, burrowing into the fabric. I began to walk. Wind picked up, carrying resin and damp earth. The weight in the sling was almost nothing, yet the weight across my chest was immense, the weight of a life placed in my hands. Halfway home, a crack split the stillness, a branch breaking. I spun, heart vaulting into my throat. 10 meters away, a coyote stood rigid. Gray fur, bristling, golden eyes locked on the bundle pressed to me. The pup whimpered, curling tighter into my chest. I straightened, raised my free arm, and bellowed, "Back off! He's not yours!" The shout ricocheted through the forest. The coyote stepped forward, nose flaring, time dragged thin. I dared not blink. Then it stopped, lifted its head, and slipped back into the trees, gone as if it had never been. My knees nearly buckled, but when I looked down into those brown eyes staring up at me, I knew why I could never give in. I drew a deep breath and pressed on, crunching over the leaf-strewn path toward the faint glow in the distance, toward the cabin that waited. In the sling, the pup sighed, the weak whimper fading. I lowered my head, whispering into the wind, "Hold on, kid. We're almost home." The next morning, autumn sunlight seeped through the fogged window, spilling into the old wooden cabin. I stirred awake in the stiff wooden chair, body sore, neck locked like stone after a sleepless night. The fire still crackled in the hearth, smoke and burning pine mingling with the cabin's stale damp. My eyes drifted to the blanket spread near the flames, where that fragile life had lain. And I froze. It was no longer curled tight the way it had been. Instead, it was straining to rise on hind legs that quivered like drawn wires. Its tiny frame wobbled, and cold sweat broke across my forehead just from watching. My heart pounded as I leapt to my feet. The pup shook, then collapsed into the blanket, a soft whimper escaping. I dropped down, pressed my hand against its back. "Easy, kid. Don't push it. There's time." It lifted its head, those brown eyes meeting mine, the pale morning light glinting inside them. No longer only fear, no longer just despair. Something else, something faint but fierce. A spark of determination gripped my chest like a fist. And I understood. It wasn't going to quit, and if it refused, then neither could I. I stoked the fire, then pulled down the iron pot. The cupboards held little more than oats and powdered milk. I cooked them into a thin porridge, cooled it, and set the bowl near its muzzle. It sniffed, hesitated, then turned away. I scooped some in my hand, held it close. At first, it shrank back, but instinct won. Its tongue flicked, then again, and slowly, bite by bite, it began to eat. Watching it swallow, my throat locked. I had sat through too many nights in hospital rooms, begging Ethan to eat, praying each spoonful would buy him another day. Now a pup brought those memories flooding back. But this time hope seemed to hold. In the days that followed, we carved out a rhythm both strange and familiar. Each morning I massaged its legs, working blood back through frozen veins. At noon I carried it to the porch, letting it test the cold ground. It stumbled, fell again, then fought to rise. Each time I bent low, whispering, "Don't stop. Try once more. You can do this." And strangely, it seemed to understand. Those brown eyes met mine, lit with an unspoken vow. "I won't give up, if you don't." One afternoon, while I split wood in the yard, a sound broke behind me. I turned. The pup was staggering down the porch steps, each step trembling, hind legs buckling, but it pressed forward. When it reached me, its body collapsed into the dirt. I flung the axe aside and scooped it into my arms. And then it happened. A sound broke loose. Not the whimper of pain, not the wary growl, but a bark, hoarse, raw, small, but a bark all the same. In that silence of the Blue Ridge, it rang like music. I laughed. A sound I hadn't heard in years, my own laughter, sharp and full. I clutched it close, tears spilling. "That's it, kid. Tell me you're alive." That night, as it curled by the fire, I watched its shadow stretch across the wall. A small shadow, fixed to mine, never straying. Without thinking, I whispered, "Rook." Its ears twitched. I said it again. "From now on, you're Rook, always at my side like a shadow, and I'll never leave you." The brown eyes glimmered. A short, raspy bark broke out, clear as a vow. I laughed through the tears, as if the whole Blue Ridge had just placed a gift in my hands. And I knew then, the name wasn't just a name. Rook was a promise. A covenant between me and the small soul fate had laid in my path on that desperate day. That winter came early, so suddenly I barely had time to prepare. Morning skies still shone clear, but by afternoon, black clouds sank into the valley. Wind tore through the naked branches, carrying the sharp scent of snow about to fall. I knew one thing with certainty. If the traps near the ridge weren't checked, any animal caught tonight would freeze to death. I pulled on my heavy coat, fastened the rusted knife at my hip, and moved toward the door. Rook stood squarely in front of it. His brown eyes caught the firelight, burning with a knowing gleam. He barked, rough, hoarse, a frail but defiant protest. I crouched, rubbed his head, my voice breaking. "Stay here. Keep the fire alive. I'll be back." But as I stepped off the porch, I heard the crunch of paws in the snow behind me. I turned. Rook was pushing out into the storm, flakes clinging to his back. He trembled, but his eyes burned with resolve. "You're not going alone." I sighed, a mix of worry and awe. "All right, kid, but you'd better promise not to quit." His ears pricked as if he understood every word. We stepped into the storm. The wind slashed across my face, cold as blades. Snow fell thick, swallowing the trail I knew by heart. Within half a mile, I lost all sense of direction. The old compass in my coat spun wildly, pointing nowhere. Each breath stabbed my lungs like knives. My body betrayed me. 64 years old, too brittle to fight a mountain storm. My head swam, vision blurred. I collapsed into the drift, snow piling over me grain by grain. For a moment I thought, maybe this is it. The woods finally claimed an old man. Then a bark ripped through the blizzard. Rook. He crashed into me, claws scraping my chest, tongue scraping across my face. His brown eyes blazed against the whiteout. He hadn't left me. His hoarse barks came sharp, urgent. Then he darted ahead a few steps, turned back, and growled as if commanding, "Get up. Follow me." I forced myself upright, legs heavy as stone. Each step was war. But Rook refused to let me stop. He ran forward, paused, barked, waited until I staggered near, then surged ahead again, over and over, like a living beacon cutting through the snow. Time stretched into forever. The storm shrieked, and darkness swallowed the world. Yet in that endless white, one small black figure kept reappearing, steady, unbroken. And then I saw it. A faint glow in the distance, yellow light bleeding through the storm. A hunter's cabin, long abandoned. Without Rook, I would have died yards away, blind to it. I stumbled inside, my body frozen stiff. Rook barreled in after, snow blanketing his back, eyes still burning. I clutched him to my chest, my voice trembling. "Kid, you just saved my life." Inside the derelict cabin, I scraped together a fire from rotten boards. The weak flames climbed the walls, throwing shadows of two survivors, an exhausted old man and a shivering, stubborn pup. We curled beneath a thin blanket, the storm howling outside. His breath pressed against my chest, warm and steady, reminding me I wasn't alone anymore. Before sleep dragged me under, I whispered, "From now on, we owe each other a life. An old man and a small dog. Family." Rook burrowed closer, exhaling a long breath as if to agree. That winter came early, so sudden I barely had time to prepare. Morning skies still shone clear, but by afternoon, black clouds sank into the valley. Wind tore through the naked branches, carrying the sharp scent of snow about to fall. I knew one thing with certainty. If the traps near the ridge weren't checked, any animal caught tonight would freeze to death. I pulled on my heavy coat, fastened the rusted knife at my hip, and moved toward the door. Rook stood squarely in front of it. His brown eyes caught the firelight, burning with a knowing gleam. He barked, rough, hoarse, a frail but defiant protest. I crouched, rubbed his head, my voice breaking. "Stay here. Keep the fire alive. I'll be back." But as I stepped off the porch, I heard the crunch of paws in the snow behind me. I turned. Rook was pushing out into the storm, flakes clinging to his back. He trembled, but his eyes burned with resolve. "You're not going alone." I sighed, a mix of worry and awe. "All right, kid, but you'd better promise not to quit." His ears pricked, as if he understood every word. We stepped into the storm. The wind slashed across my face, cold as blades. Snow fell thick, swallowing the trail I knew by heart. Within half a mile, I lost all sense of direction. The old compass in my coat spun wild, pointing nowhere. Each breath stabbed my lungs like knives. My body betrayed me, 64 years old, too brittle to fight a mountain storm. My head swam, vision blurred. I collapsed into the drift, snow piling over me grain by grain. For a moment I thought, maybe this is it. The woods finally claiming an old man. Then a bark ripped through the blizzard. Rook. He crashed into me, claws scraping my chest, tongue scraping across my face. His brown eyes blazed against the whiteout. He hadn't left me. His hoarse barks came sharp, urgent. Then he darted ahead a few steps, turned back, growled as if commanding, "Get up! Follow me!" I forced myself upright, legs heavy as stone. Each step was war. But Rook refused to let me stop. He ran forward, paused, barked, waited until I staggered near, then surged ahead again, over and over, like a living beacon cutting through the snow. Time stretched into forever. The storm shrieked. Darkness swallowed the world. Yet in that endless white, one small black figure kept reappearing, steady, unbroken. And then, I saw it. A faint glow in the distance. Yellow light bleeding through the storm. A hunter's cabin, long abandoned. Without Rook, I would have died yards away, blind to it. I stumbled inside, my body frozen stiff. Rook barreled in after, snow blanketing his back, eyes still burning. I clutched him to my chest, my voice trembling. "Kid, you just saved my life." Inside the derelict cabin, I scraped together a fire from rotten boards. The weak flames climbed the walls, throwing shadows of 2 survivors, an exhausted old man and a shivering, stubborn pup. We curled beneath a thin blanket, the storm howling outside, his breath pressed against my chest, warm and steady, reminding me I wasn't alone anymore. Before sleep dragged me under, I whispered, "From now on, we owe each other a life. An old man and a small dog. Family." Rook burrowed closer, exhaling a long breath as if to agree. When I opened my eyes, pale light slipped through the cracked boards of the cabin. The storm had passed. No more howling winds. Only the silence of a forest buried in snow. Beside me, Rook still slept soundly, his head resting on my arm, breath steady as a lullaby. I sat up, looked around the abandoned shack, then bent to stroke his back. He stirred, brown eyes blinking open, staring straight into me. In them, I saw a bond I thought I had lost forever, the bond I once had with Ethan, with Clara, with life itself. We left the shelter when the sun stood high. The path home was drowned in snow, but it no longer felt threatening. Whenever I faltered, Rook would run ahead, turn back, his eyes urging, "Don't stop. I'm here." Back at the cabin, I lit the fire. Rook curled on the blanket, eyes heavy, coat glowing in the light. I sat down with Clara's old journal, the one untouched for years. I opened it and wrote my first words after a long silence. "Today, Rook saved my life. He is no longer the dog I rescued in the woods. He is family." Day by day, we built a new rhythm. Each morning, I led Rook into the yard, helping him walk through the snow. He stumbled, but never quit. He rose again, lifted his head, brown eyes burning like embers in the cold night. I taught him step by step, but in truth, he was teaching me how to move forward. At night, we sat by the fire. I spoke to him of my past, about Ethan, about Clara, about the years bent beneath car hoods soaked in oil and grease. He didn't understand the words, but in his eyes I found something I thought I'd lost forever. Someone who listened. One evening, with sunset spilling gold over the blue ridge, Rook suddenly bounded toward me, nudging, licking my hands without pause. I laughed, a sound loud and real, something the cabin hadn't heard in years. I wrapped him tight and whispered, "I saved you once. But the truth is, you've saved me more times than I can count." Rook gazed up, eyes shimmering, and let out a raspy bark that rang clear. In that instant, I knew he understood. Time passed. Snow melted, uncovering the red dirt roads that led back to town. I began walking Rook further, letting people see an old man no longer alone. They called me the old man with the little Doberman. Strangers smiled, nodded. Children ran to pet him. And to my surprise, Rook stood still, calm eyes soft, no trace of the panic he once carried. One night, writing in Clara's journal, I remembered her words. "Kindness is a circle. What you give will find its way back. Maybe not right away, but it always will." I glanced down. Rook lay asleep at my feet, ears twitching in a dream. I closed the book and whispered, "The circle's complete. I saved you, Rook, and you saved me." Outside, wind whispered through snow-laden pines. I listened hard. My father once told me, "If you listen, the forest will whisper its thanks." That night, I believed I heard it, a low murmur of gratitude, as if the woods themselves knew I hadn't turned away. I looked at Rook again, laid my hand on his head. He sighed, pressed into my palm, and drifted back to sleep. And in that moment, I understood. Miracles aren't lightning strikes from the heavens. Miracles are when two broken lives, both nearly lost, find each other, and because of it, both find reasons to go on. Some stories end in silence, but some leave an echo that changes you forever. For me, that echo is Rook. A Doberman pup was once trapped in the forest, trembling on the edge of death. I thought I saved him, but he was the one who pulled me back from emptiness. I've realized something simple. When we reach out to save a fragile life, we don't just give it survival. We give ourselves a second chance, a chance to love, a chance to trust, a chance to keep living. And now, I want to ask you, have you ever saved a dog, a cat, or any fragile soul? If you have, share your story in the comments. Let those stories ripple outward, so no life has to be abandoned in silence again. If you believe kindness can change the world, hit like, subscribe, and share this video. Because who knows, you might be the reason a small life is saved tomorrow.